An up and down performance for ASU was certainly a step down from last week, but that didn't stop them from getting a rock solid grade.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch by following me on Twitter at RichieBrats36, the podcast at LL_Sun Devils. Do me a solid. If you have not hit subscribe on YouTube yet, help me out. We are closing in on 1,000 followers. As of today, 930. We are 70 followers away. I think we can get this easily before the end of the month. Be the person who helps us get there, and we will find a way to celebrate together as a channel. Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5energy.com. Use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB and get 20% off of your order. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into today's edition of the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. We're going to have some fun. We are going to hand out some grades. I talked about last week actually incorporating like a number scale from 0 to 100. I did that this week, so that'll be fun. We're going through the offense, so position groups: quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line. Defense will be the 3 levels, so defensive line, linebackers, and the secondary. And then we'll round out with the coaching, which will include Kenny Dillingham as a head coach, Marcus Arroyo calling plays on offense, Brian Ward calling plays on defense, and an overall grade for the team that will be a collective average from each positional group. Let's start on offense. Let's start with quarterback. And I'm not going to lie to you, this was certainly a down week at the quarterback position. I gave him a D+, 68 out of 100. I'll tell you right now, the one thing that saved this performance was Sam Levitt's running. On the day through the air, 10 of 20 for 69 yards, 50% completion, under 4 yards per attempt, 6.9 yards per completion. The passing game was non-existent. Now, there is something we're going to explore later on in the podcast that has to do with not asking Sam Levitt to throw the football. And by the time you did ask him to throw the football, he wasn't in a rhythm. And you could see that he just was not there as a passer. This was not a team that was trying to do 50-50 or even 60-40 when it came to splitting the passing game and the running game. And to a certain extent, you understand that because ASU's running game, which we'll talk about here in a moment, was historically great for the program. It was one of the most outstanding performances you'll ever see, especially from an individual in particular. So you didn't need to pass the ball, but when Mississippi State made adjustments in the second half and they started coming back at a rapid pace, and all of a sudden you can't pass the football, that is a problem. And it led to ASU really struggling on third down conversions when Mississippi State was stacking the line, stuffing the run, and daring you to throw it. They weren't afraid of your passing game, and it showed. This was a really bad week through the air. The only thing that saved them was Sam Levitt, once again, is a dynamic runner. 11 carries, 68 yards, 2 scores for this team. The 2 touchdowns that came on the offensive side of the football both came from Sam Levitt. And he is special as a runner. Last week, we saw him have a really quality game against Wyoming. One of the questions I had was, is this going to be something we see on a week-to-week basis? This looks like something we're going to see on a week-to-week basis. I'm not ready to call him Jaden Daniels. I'm not ready to call him Manny Wilkins. I did see a comparison from one Jordan Simone, who got to play with this guy, that he is Taylor Kelly. And again, I'm going to slow down on that because if you listen to this podcast, and this is an older episode that we did this, but I believe Taylor Kelly is one of the 3 greatest quarterbacks in Sun Devil history, only behind Danny White and Jake the Snake. You can let me know how you feel about that. But in terms of like as a player, I could totally understand that because Levitt is an underrated passer when he gets into a rhythm, which he wasn't able to do in this game, and he can beat you as a runner. But more importantly, he's someone that is just able to maneuver the pocket, make off-schedule plays. It wasn't seen as much in this game, which leads to a really low grade. But thankfully, what he was able to do as a runner was phenomenal. And because of that, ASU's ground game was even more effective than it was from one individual. But you were able to save what was otherwise a bad performance, especially when you consider they had 69 passing yards. Sam Levitt had 68 rushing yards. Keep in mind, he was sacked once in this game. So he had more rushing yards than he did passing yards. Sometimes you just got to be able to make some plays, whether it's through the air or on the ground. Sam Levitt made the adjustment, and he was able to pick up his performance, which is going to save him from a worse grade. Running backs, I gave him a perfect grade. A+, 100 out of 100. Cameron Skattebo, an elite performance, a historic performance for the Sun Devils. 33 carries, 262 yards. The second most in a game in Sun Devil history. I asked you guys yesterday if you knew who was first. The answer is Eno Benjamin in 2018 against Oregon State. He ran for 312 yards. So pretty big cushion over second place. But Skattebo was a friggin' beast, man. And this is also with a Mississippi State team that in the second half stacked the line and challenged ASU to beat them with anyone besides Skattebo. So there was a point in time where he slowed down a bit. That wasn't even really his fault. The Bulldogs were just selling out on the run. And when it came down to crunch time, the final drive of the game, Skattebo got right back to what he was doing in the first half with chunk yards and was able to get the first downs. He ran for a 39-yard, a 39-yard run to ultimately seal the game. It was the dagger. He could have potentially scored a touchdown, but he was a very selfless player in this game. Decides to slide down, stay inbounds, and ASU was able to drain out the clock. Can't ask for anything more of that. This was an outstanding performance. There was a little bit of contribution behind him to Carlos Brooks, 8 carries, 24 yards, and Kyson Brown, 2 carries, 5 yards. So 10 carries for 29 yards, not that great, but you didn't need them to be great in this game. But my prediction of the Carlos Brooks leading the team in rushing yards this past weekend doesn't look pretty good, but neither here nor there. Skattebo was absolutely dominant, carried this unit by himself. Perfect score. Wide receivers, C-, and I feel like that's probably a little generous. I am giving them a 71 out of 70, or not out of 70, a 71 out of 100 here. And again, I feel like this is probably pretty generous on my part because they were non-factors. They really did not do anything in this game. Your leader was Xavier Guillory, 2 catches, 14 yards. Other than that, Stovall had a single catch, which he turned into, sorry, my page refreshed for some reason, 9 yards, and Jordan Tyson caught 2 passes for 7 yards. Tyson had quite a few targets. They weren't on target. So that makes it really tough, in my opinion, to give them a worse grade than a C-, because I don't necessarily think that this game was their fault. It's not like they dropped 5 passes. It's not like they were unable to get open in this game. That wasn't the issue. The issue was the passing game was not in sync. Nonetheless, sometimes you just got to find a way to step up. They weren't able to do that in this game. But again, that's not necessarily their fault. This is not slander of the receiver position. they just didn't produce. So, I mean, you just got to call it as it is and move forward. So, we'll move forward. Tight end, I'm also giving them a C minus, slightly better than receiver. I'm going to go 72 out of 100 here. They also did not have much to do in this game. They only had 2 catches for 4 yards. Marqueston Douglas made his first catch of the season, 1 catch for 3 yards. Shimon Mateer caught 1 pass for 1 yard. They had almost nothing to do in the passing game. If you thought the receivers didn't produce, the tight ends were about as non-existent as it gets. But with that being said, they were really good in a run game. And that's where they're able to pick up that grade from me. In a game where ASU ran for 359 yards on 54 carries and got 2 touchdowns, the tight end position was absolutely part of that. Marqueston Douglas, elite blocker. And you could see that on display when he was lining up inside in line for the team. Terrific. So, yeah, you got next to nothing from them out of the passing game. But at the end of the day, they gave you so much in the ground game that you can't give them anything worse than a C minus. The offensive line, I'm going to go with a B plus, an 87 out of 100. The reason why I was not able to give them an A is because in the second half, they got bullied. They killed it in the first half. ASU ran wild in this game. They were able to carve out lanes. Cameron Skattebo was able to get skinny, and they had chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. Second half, when Mississippi State made adjustments, they controlled the line of scrimmage. And in fairness, it's a little easier for the defense to control the line of scrimmage when you're sending 7 guys against 5 guys. I understand, which is why I'm not slandering them too much, but you still have to be able to create some lanes. And there was missed blocks in this game. They allowed a single sack of Sam Levitt. I feel like Levitt, once again, did some really good work as a runner, which he was able to get out of some pressure. It wasn't a perfect performance, but you know what? On the final drive of the game, they played great. Outside of Lee Fotanu's 15-yard personal foul penalty, other than that, it was a really good drive to end the game where Skattebo was able to find holes once again. When it mattered most, the offensive line stepped up. I'm giving them a rock-solid B, 87 out of 100. We're going to flip to the defensive side of the football, where we're going to go through the defensive line, the linebackers, and the secondary, all of which, spoiler alert, had pretty quality performances. We're going to preview that and grade them here in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 5 Hour Energy is one of our sponsors for today, and they fix tired fast. Whether you have a long list to do at work or a list of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check off everything on your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for home. When you need supplies for the project, don't forget the most essential supply, which is that 5 Hour Energy shot. 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for 20 years to give them alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy and hectic day. You always know where to find that 5 Hour Energy shot too. It's right at the cash register of nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs too. When you check out the website, make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5energy.com, get yourself some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB and receive 20% off your order. Keep in mind, this offer is only valid until September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Again, go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5energy.com today. Use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB and get 20% off of your order. Wherever you get your shows, hit like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you get that update when we post new content. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. But thanks to all of you for tuning in every day, making us your first listen of the day. Let's grade the defense. Once again, really strong performance. From start to mostly finish, they dominated. The first half, once again, they were unstoppable. They were the immovable object that Mississippi State could not get past in this game. They were unable to get anything going on the run game. Once again, this team surrendered 26 carries for just 30 yards. They were able to get after Chapin 3 times to deliver sacks, 2 of them from the defensive line, which is where we'll start this conversation. D-line, giving them a flat A, 95 out of 100. They controlled the line of scrimmage. Again, like I said, 26 carries for 30 yards in this game. They delivered 2 of ASU's 3 sacks coming from Elijah O'Neal and coming from Jacob Rich Kongaika from the interior of the line. They held Chapin to 7 carries for negative 22 yards. He had a long of 7 yards. A quarterback that is a dual threat for all intents and purposes, and someone that we previewed going into this game as a threat to the Sun Devils, a big-time threat to the Sun Devils because of that ability to break the pocket, beat you as a runner, and make the off-script plays. The defensive line controlled them, and they controlled the rest of the ground game as well. Kavion Lee, their leading rusher, 9 carries, 35 yards. He got a late score in the game, under 4 yards per carry. Kevin Coleman, 1 carry, 9 yards. Devon Booth, 6 carries, 7 yards. Johnny Daniels, 3 carries, 1 yard. You couldn't run on them. Now, the one thing that I'm curious about, and this does not have to do with their performance, it's just something I'm concerned with moving forward, is the injuries. The interior of the line, all 4 of your key players. Jeff Clark, who missed the game flat out, did not get to suit up for this game. CJ Fight, Jacob Rich Kongaika, and Zach Swanson were all banged up during this game and taken off of the field. Fight made his return onto the field. I'm pretty sure Swanson and Kongaika were able to get back there as well. But I'm really hoping that they're able to stay on top of their game. When they went down, that's when Mississippi State was able to get a little bit going in the ground game. When you don't have that deep interior defensive line, this is where you start to wonder if teams in the future can expose the Sun Devils defense. Now, again, this is predicated on injuries, which I never like to predict injuries. I just want to make sure these guys stay 100% healthy. Otherwise, you're just not going to run on them this year. Edge rushers played really well. Elijah O'Neal had a sack back-to-back games. The guy that we picked to be one of the biggest breakouts on the Sun Devils team this year once again showed up. He's a beast. He's a monster. I just know that this is a sign of things to come. I would not be surprised if he ended up at that 6 sack mark, which was tied for first last year between BJ Green and Prince Dorba. The only guy I see finishing ahead of him is Clayton Smith, who was able to force a fumble, a tackle for loss, which in my opinion should have been a sack. I do not like that they did not chalk up that tackle as a sack for Clayton Smith, but he was able to force a fumble because Chapin, unfortunately, was just trying to do much. You're just trying to do too much. Sometimes as a quarterback, you got to tip your cap and take your loss. You get sacked, it is what it is. Do you want him to throw it away? Yeah, of course you do. You don't want to lose the yardage, but sometimes you just need to. And that was the case for Chapin right here, who unfortunately tried to throw the ball away, and it just slipped out of his hands as Clayton Smith was bringing him down. CJ Fight, defensive tackle, picks it up for a big man touchdown. He ballerina danced his way into the end zone. It was phenomenal, the body control that he showed as he's running to the sidelines with the momentum carrying him, extends the ball out to break the pylon. Dude, you can't do it better than that. So back-to-back weeks now, ASU has recorded a defensive touchdown. They have 3 on the year, 4 turnovers, 3 of them have been returned from scores, or returned for scores, excuse me. Defense is balling out right now. 2 turnovers from the defensive line. Both of them have been returned for touchdowns. A in this game, 95 out of 100. Linebacker, same grade, A, 95 out of 100. Once again, these guys helped contain Blake Shapen. They were playing sideline to sideline. They were able to stuff holes, and they just dominated the line of scrimmage with the defensive line opening things up for them. It was another great performance from Keyshawn Elliott. 5 tackles, 2 of them solo, got a sack and a TFL. He was great. He is going to be one of the most productive players for this defense by the end of the year. I said he's going to be a box score stuffer. He's on his way. Already has an interception and already a pick 6, by the way. Or no. He was the one who didn't score. Zyrus Fiaseyu, who we'll talk about in a second, got the score. Has an interception. Now he has a fumble. He's going to box score stuff this year. It's going to be phenomenal. Speaking of Zyrus Fiaseyu, though, this is linebacker 2. ASU's got some depth this year, and I will be curious what happens when Tate Romney eventually makes his makes his way back to the lineup. Curious how that's going to unfold. But in the meantime, Fiaseyu's a beast. He is so good next to Keyshawn Elliott. You can't imagine a better duo between these guys. The depth is there too. Caleb McCullough was able to grab 4 tackles for himself. Good game from the linebackers. 95 out of 100. The secondary, this is the lowest grade on the defense. I'm giving them a flat B, 85 out of 100. They were really good in the first half. Shapen had some open receivers, albeit, but the defensive line was able to help some bad throws, which allowed the defensive backs to make sure that they were able to make plays. The one that I remember was very early in the game. Shapen took a shot deep down the far left sideline and was pretty close to completing it, but Javen Robinson had good coverage and the ball was able to go incomplete. So they did a pretty good job covering these guys in the first half. Second half, completely different story. They gave up an 80-yard touchdown, which ultimately put Mississippi State within 2 scores. I want to say that was the score that put them. Yes, it definitely was. It was a score that put them within 7. That was a scary, scary play. And it was a huge game changer. And that was the play that you were wondering if the secondary was going to be able to hold up. Now, outside of that 80-yard touchdown and a rocky second half, they overall had a really good game. Once again, the secondary led the team in tackles. Once again, Miles Ghost Rouser led the team in tackles. Of the 58 team tackles they had, the DBs had 30 of them. Top 3 tacklers from the game, by the way, were your safeties. Miles Rouser was able to record 10 with 4 solo. Shamari Simmons, who continues to be awesome from the nickel spot, 7 tackles, 4 solo. Xavion Alford, your third safety, 6 tackles, 1 solo. They killed it. This safety position is such a difference maker for the team. Secondary played a rock solid game. There's work to be done, but from start to finish, for the most part, or from top to bottom, I mean, it was a quality game. We're going to talk about coaching here to round things out. We're going to take a look at Kenny, at Marcus Arroyo, at Brian Ward, and an overall average grade for the performance of this team and a win over Mississippi State. Coming up next, this is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is also sponsored to you by Ibotta. If you are taking that dream vacation this summer or this winter or this fall, but you're dreading the cost, with Ibotta, you can get cash on all your purchases, all of them, grocery stores, everything. You can spend more time making memories with your upcoming trips and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. So you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user makes $256 a year. That can cover the cost of an entire shopping trip. It can get that flight that you've been eyeing or the fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps that give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and Viola, the money is yours. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 different retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time that you joined the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is giving our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register to get that $5. Go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, at the Google Play or the Apple Store. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege. One last time, wherever you get your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update when we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Let's round this episode out with the coaching, which was up and down. And we'll start with Kenny Dillingham, who I'm giving a B- in this game. 82 out of 100. This was an overall well-coached game, I felt. The problem was, and Kenny said this himself in the post-game conference, as he started to overrule Marcus Arroyo's offensive play calling. And they were really stubborn with the run game, and they removed the passing game. You had 20 passing attempts in this game that only went for 10 completions. And a big portion of the reason why that happened was Sam Leavitt was thrown out of a rhythm. He was not able to consistently get the opportunity to throw the ball down the field, throw the ball anywhere, really. And surprise, surprise, it's going to lead to a poor performance. Now, of course, the run game was great. 54 carries as a team for 359 yards. One of those carries, by the way, included the single sack on Sam Leavitt. This was a dominant running game. And it's not a surprise at all that Kenny Dillingham would want to push the running game the way he did when you have that kind of success. But when your offensive coordinator is trying to call a balanced game to make sure you don't get into those situations, you probably need to allow your coordinator to have a little more say in the offense. And again, Kenny said that, and this is not Kenny Dillingham slander. It's just something that he said himself. You dominated the time of possession in this game, though. 40 minutes and 13 seconds compared to 19 minutes and 17 seconds time of possession for ASU. They ran the ball, which chewed up the clock. They also dominated on defense, which forced 3 and outs from Mississippi State. They really did not get anything going until that second half of the Bulldogs. Other than that, you killed it, man. And they did a really good job calling that game. This was a bad week in penalties, though. 9 penalties for 85 yards. That includes Lee Fotanu's 15-yard personal foul penalty on the last drive of the game. This was not a disciplined team the way that we saw them last week, where they had 3 penalties, with 2 of those being delay games. ASU has got to get better. This was a very undisciplined performance, which we're not really used to seeing from Kenny Dillingham coach teams. They were very good last year. They were excellent last week. They have got to get better this upcoming week. It felt like in the second half, it felt like they really started to get into their own heads, and it led to poor decisions, poor play, and poor execution. Got to get better there. Kenny Dillingham, 82 out of 100. Marcus Arroyo, flat B, 85 out of 100. Called a great running game, obviously. 359 yards. One of the greatest performances in Sun Devil history. Cameron Skattebo, he leaned on him, and that was very much the right decision. 33 carries went to Skattebo out of the team's 54 total carries. That's the right thing to do when he is going. Now, Do I wish they mixed it up? Yes, of course. DeCarlos Brooks only getting 8 carries in this game when you ran the ball 54 times. I personally don't find that ideal. Now, he wasn't as effective in this game. He only had 24 yards with a long of 5. He was not nearly the big play guy that he was in week 1 against Wyoming. Is what it is. I still would have liked to have seen him get a few more carries to balance things out. And yeah, it would have sapped away some of Skattebo's touches, but that keeps him a little bit fresher, in my opinion. Other than that, though, I mean, you dialed up a really good running game. Passing game obviously wasn't there, but part of that was kind of Kenny's decision to be so run heavy. So it is on Arroyo for sure. That's not a 100% on Kenny thing. You probably give it about a 50-50, maybe a little more to Kenny. The biggest issue that I had in this game, they made no adjustments in the second half when Mississippi State made adjustments. When Mississippi State was able to start stacking the line, taking away the run game, they couldn't do anything to stop it. They were having 3 and outs. They were unable to convert critical third downs. By the way, just 5 of 15 on third downs in this game. They did go 3 of 3 on fourth down, which was really good for this team. But they struggled to convert. They struggled to get themselves into situations for third and shorts. I think the average was like 3rd and 7 in this game. That's really tough. And then, of course, they couldn't throw the football when they needed to. Yeah, you dominated the running game. You still got to be able to pass it. So overall, 85 out of 100 here. Brian Ward, last grade, 95 out of 100 for rock solid A. They dominated the first half. You were hoping that was going to be the way things were going to go for the rest of the game. They controlled the line of scrimmage. The defensive line, it's just so good, man. You can't run on them. You absolutely cannot run on this group. And as long as everyone stays healthy, that's going to happen all season long. They were able to dial up a pass rush that got 3 more sacks this week. They forced another turnover, returned it for a touchdown. Secondary had a pretty quality game as well. Unfortunately, in the second half, Mississippi State, again, made adjustments. The defense was not able to keep up. Now, the question I have is, this felt very similar to the 2023 Sun Devils, where even though the defense was playing really good, they got tired because ASU's offense was going 3 and out and putting them back on the field a little quicker than you would like them to. Defense, I feel like, kind of suffered some fatigue in this game. I would especially say that when they gave up the 80-yard touchdown. The team was out of position for that play, but you haven't allowed a play like that in these first 2 games. It just wasn't expected. We saw that play happen in the press box, and we kind of turned to each other and we're like, what the hell was that? It was not something that we would ever predict. So that's something that I wonder is more of like an exception compared to the rule, if that's an anomaly kind of thing. Nonetheless, you don't want to see it. They did a great job on third down conversions, 3 of 11 for the Bulldogs, 1 of 2 on fourth down. They did a pretty good job when it came to getting off the field. The overall grade for this team, this is the culmination of all the grades together. It came out to an 85 on the dot. 85 out of 100 for a rock solid B. The defense really stepped up to help carry this unit because the offense, outside of the running game, didn't do nearly enough that you needed them to. They had very quality play from the offensive line, literally a perfect grade running the ball, really bad grades passing. Defense stepped up big time. The coaching overall was pretty good. Kenny, not the best game he's called, certainly not the worst. Marcus Arroyo, hopefully we can get a more balanced offense. Brian Ward, terrific. Overall, 85 out of 100. This could have easily been another A if they were able to play a strong second half, but there were 2 critical drives in the second half that defined this game. Mississippi State was absolutely rolling on offense. You felt like they were going to just score at will. The defense forced a 3 and out, which didn't exactly kill the rhythm, but not the rhythm, the momentum, because the very next drive they had that 80-yard touchdown. But if they do not get that 3 and out, I don't think that ASU wins this game. Then you had the final drive of the game on offense. You chewed up right around 6 minutes of clock time running the football with Cam Skattebo. That was not only the game-winning drive, it might have been the most important drive that you had in the entire game. When you had Mississippi State charging on offense, when you had that defense snuffing out everything that ASU wanted to do on offense for themselves, this was so critical to the game. Those 2 drives, the 3 and out that halted some of the momentum from the Bulldogs, and the game-sealing drive from the offense. Those were the 2 most important drives for the game. They both came in the fourth quarter. You don't have those drives, I really don't think that you win this game. 85 out of 100. Bottom line, top to bottom, as your average. How would you grade the Sun Devils? Am I being lenient? Am I being too stubborn when it comes to these grades? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter as well at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, though, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. And thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Tomorrow on the show, we have overreactions from this game. I was kind of curious if this was going to be something that we did moving forward. Yeah, we got some overreactions for sure. I don't know how many we're going to do. I don't know if we're going to distribute it, a certain way for some offense, some defense, but we got some overreactions to go through tomorrow before we jump into preparing for Texas State. So I'll see you there. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.